This is going to be 5 minutes, and I'll keep it to 5 minutes, of a really potted summary of the climate and nature crisis. So I'm going to jump through a few of the key parts of the story, I guess, and this might be something you could tell someone else, or you could use in your own job or your role. So we're going to start with the Earth. Now, the Earth is often described as the Goldilocks planet because, just like in the story, the Earth is not too hot, not too cold. It's just right. The temperature is perfect for life to flourish. Partly that's because of how far we are from the sun. It's to do with the Earth's orbit, but it's also to do with this blanket of gases, these greenhouse gases that are around the Earth, and that's the atmosphere. And that blanket of gases, we can often think of it like a coat. It's like the Earth has this coat which keeps it at a comfortable temperature, and it traps the heat from the sun, it traps that radiation. Now, humans, though, have come along and found fossil fuels, coal, oil, gas in the ground, dug them up and burnt them. And that's created another jacket. It's increased the thickness of that blanket of gases. So we've got more greenhouse gases. And imagine if you were wearing 2 coats all day. How would you feel if you were wearing 2 coats? You'd be hot. And so just like if we were wearing 2 coats, the Earth is too hot. And one of the things that we need to do is remove that extra coat. We need to take it away. And fortunately, there's things in nature that do that. But what we also need to do is take it out of the sky, out of the atmosphere so fast that we also need to suck it out of the sky, like almost with big hoovers, to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and in the sky. So we can jump into this a bit more, and we can look at how temperature has changed since the Industrial Revolution. So it's about 170, 150 years ago, there was this turning point where the Earth's temperature began to shift. And that's because of human activity. And what this shows is, it's called the warming stripes. And it comes from someone at the University of Reading, someone, Ed Hawkins. And each line is a year. The darker the blue, the colder; the darker the red, the warmer. And you can see a real turning point where the Earth has become warmer much quicker. The Earth has warmed by about 1.2 degrees Celsius since the Industrial Revolution. And 1.2 degrees doesn't sound like much. Between night and day, the temperature changes 5-10 degrees. And that's one of the worrying things, the dangers around the climate and nature crisis, is that the numbers involved don't jump out straight away as being alarming. They sound quite inert. They don't sound that dangerous. So that's one reason why it's a bit risky to focus on temperature. And I'll tell you a bit more what's a good way to be able to communicate this instead. But we know there's a relationship between temperature and carbon dioxide. We've known that since the early 1800s. That science has been known for decades, for hundreds of years. Now, we can look, this is over the last 2,000 years, and you can see, again, there's this turning point at the Industrial Revolution where we put far more of these gases up into the sky, and that rate of increase has never happened before. So throughout the history of the Earth, 4.6 billion years, the amount of carbon dioxide in the sky has never increased at the rate it has now. You would have to go back millions of years to find carbon dioxide at the same levels, but it's that rate of change which is really, really alarming. You can then put that in a bigger time frame. We can zoom out. This is over the last 800,000 years, and you can see that the Earth went from warm, cold, warm, cold, warm, cold, more carbon dioxide, less. But look where we are now. It's almost a vertical line when you look at it in this scale. And we've reached something called 420 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the sky. If you took 1 million molecules in the sky, 420 would be carbon dioxide. Again, 420 out of 1 million doesn't sound like much, but you only need a very little bit of carbon to be able to cause a big impact. The better thing to focus on is to focus on how it's changing our weather, particularly our experience of extreme weather events. So that change in the average is shifting everything slightly. So we are experiencing warmer weather. The likelihood, the probability of that weather has increased, and also the temperature extremes are increasing. So this summer we experienced the first 40 degrees Celsius ever in the UK. And we know through scientific research that that was made more likely by climate change. It also, at the other end of the spectrum, means that cold weather events are less likely. And we're seeing that in, if you're fortunate enough to go skiing or you watch skiing, those resorts across Europe just haven't been able to function. It's having a big impact on lots of the economy over in those sorts of mountainous regions, but they just can't facilitate skiing. This also we see out in terms of rainfall as well. So we are seeing more intense periods of rainfall, and rather oddly, we are also experiencing more intense periods of dry weather. So the rainfall that we do experience comes really quickly, causes lots of flooding. Then we have periods of very little rainfall. That's again something that we've experienced a lot over the last few years. We've had hosepipe bans and we've had droughts. And if anyone's a gardener, you'll have noticed this on your garden. And also the temperatures had a real impact on gardens as well. So those are the bits that people might be picking up on and experiencing on a day-to-day. The other thing we wanted to emphasize is the impact on nature as well. Nature is a really important part of this jigsaw. Humans have completely changed the dynamic of the natural world. There are now only 4% of mammals that are wild. The majority of mammals on Earth now are livestock, 62% that are cows, pigs, and all kinds of animals that we eat. So what we need to do is return to a sense that humans are a part of nature rather than separate from. We've developed this mentality that humans are something above and different from the rest of nature, when actually nature is who we are. This is what we are, and it's the foundation of our very existence. The other thing I wanted to focus on is the point of justice, and we've touched on that already, but this shows it really clearly, that if we're thinking about carbon and the amount of carbon dioxide that's been emitted into the sky, it is a very small proportion of people. It is the richest 10% of people in the world who have caused more than 50% of the carbon dioxide in the sky. And this is a real injustice because they've used up more of the carbon than actually the majority of people. There's 4 billion people, the poorest 4 billion people on Earth, who actually have only caused 7% of the carbon dioxide emissions. And if we were talking about fairness, equality, they should be allowed to emit far more carbon. And we can think the same in terms of lifestyles in the UK. Now, to be in the top 10 richest people, top 10% of richest people in the world, you only need to earn minimum wage in the UK. So that gives you some perspective about our lifestyles in the UK compared to the majority of people in the world, and actually where we sit in this jigsaw of things. So yes, you might feel like there are some people in the UK who have big SUVs and fly all the time. Yes, they are causing more of the problem, but also we need to understand where we are in that big global picture.